Hello and welcome to the Baggies Podcast. It's fantastic to be back after a week's break. Not a break that I was foreshadowing or anything that I was planning on having, but it's been a break, and I'm not really sure why I've had it. It's because of my computer issues. We've had problems recording the podcast, saving the podcast, but I've now got an external hard drive. And we are ready to go, essentially. We're all ready to start. We're ready to get into the podcast. And it's episode 7. And obviously there's 2 weeks of missed action to talk about. There's been a friendly as well, which we've got to talk about. But the main points we're going to be going through is, we played Nottingham Forest the other day, and we're going to talk about, do friendlies really matter? Because I think that's the first one that we've been noted about. We might have had a couple behind closed doors or things like that, but there's still plenty to discuss about that friendly and what went wrong, because we did lose 1-0 to Nottingham Forest, and there are plenty of there's plenty of transfer activity. There's plenty of rumours about transfer activity, but not enough doing, I don't think, at the moment. So we're going to hear your guys' thoughts. Obviously you guys, as always, have been getting in touch on Twitter, answering some questions which I've asked across the Twitter platform and the West Bromwich Albion fan base, and we're going to be reading those answers out to you. So without further ado, let's get back into the Baggies Podcast. It's episode 7. Let's get straight into it. The Baggies Podcast on YouTube, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Join me every week for a new episode of the Baggies Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. So, as I said, plenty to discuss, plenty to be cracking on with in this podcast. I mean, there's lots of. I suppose I've been away for it's been 2 weeks since we last spoke, so there's plenty to discuss. So, I suppose we can start with that game against Nottingham Forest, and I suppose we can delve deeper into what really happened there. We lost 1-0 to Nottingham Forest in a friendly at St George's Park. We were sharing that campus, I think, the England training facilities, with Nottingham Forest, and we lost 1-0 thanks to a Lyle Taylor goal. Obviously, Nottingham Forest not in our league. Perhaps not physically in our league, but still, it was a funny experience, because a lot of fans were getting themselves worked up, getting themselves quite worried. I'm worried because of lack of transfer activity, but I wasn't particularly concerned by the friendly result against Nottingham Forest. However, some people were. So I'll talk you through the game, and I'll talk you through the lineup that we played and see what you guys think of it. So to start with, we did play two different sides, and the only two senior players who didn't get a run out was Connor Townsend and Kenneth Zahor. So here we go: Johnston, Furlong, Bartley, Peltier, Gibbs, Livermore, Field, Phillips, Tulloch, Edwards, Robson-Kanu. So that is what we started with in the first half, and then we changed entirely, and the rest of the squad did come on in the second half. We conceded after 25 minutes with Lyle Taylor scoring. Apparently we had lots of chances. It's just the communication from the West Bromwich Albion team wasn't great, I suppose. There wasn't as much coverage as I'd have liked to see. There weren't as many things as I'd have liked to have seen from the West Brom. I'd like to see how players play, because obviously you've got Tulloch in there, and Tulloch, he's sort of newish to the first team. We're all very excited about his development. We're all very excited about how he's going to play in the future. We're all excited to see the player that he becomes. So when he gets starts like that, and when he gets starts against good championship opposition, I'd like to know how he in particular got on. Maybe some player ratings. I'm not sure who was there, as in journalism-wise. I don't think many journalists attended the game. I doubt that they'd be allowed to, especially in the circumstances of today. But it was just a bit strange, I suppose, to see that happening. I guess we moved on from the game, and everybody was pretty frustrated. If I read out some comments from the Twitter page when we lost 1-0, I say the word that was used by the West Brom Twitter account to show the match review was Albion begin pre-season with valuable workout. I couldn't quite understand that, if I'm being completely honest. We did create some chances, apparently. Jamie Saul had a shot saved. Jamie Saul, Sal Shotton and Rayan Tulloch gaining valuable for first team experience as well. I like Jamie Saul. I think I'm looking forward to seeing the player he becomes quite a lot, actually. So let's have a look. I mean, lots of people are caring about it, and lots of people are getting quite upset about it. Yes, it is an indication that we need to sign some players, but I don't think that's really the indication that you need. The indication you need is the fact that the only signing you've made is somebody that you were obliged to buy. Yes, that's a fantastic signing, not undermining the quality or the price of Mateus Pereira. But, nobody really Nobody really expected us to come out of that game and think, oh, we've beaten Nottingham Forest 3-0. We don't need to make any signings. We need to make some signings. That side at the moment is not quite good enough to stay up for me. I mean, that's just putting it lightly. So we asked you guys a couple of questions, so we'll read out the first answer to the first question, which was, did that friendly against Forest really matter to you? If yes or no, please state why it did. So Paul Garbutt messaged in saying, the Forest result is not important. The friendlies are about rotation and fitness. I agree. It's a fitness workout. But yeah, it is a call to arms to say we need to make some signings, because obviously you can't be losing to Championship opposition. You know, none of those players there are completely out of the Championship league. You know, most of those players could play Championship football. It's just the fact that nobody decided to. Nobody really, made any many opportunities. Nobody put the ball in the back of the net. So. And James has commented and said, friendlies are never important. It's a fitness and experimentation exercise. Yeah, it's a fair comment. SFC has commented saying, Forest game matters just as much as the draw against Rotherham last season. Result is secondary to a whole host of factors in friendlies. Yeah, definitely. I'll have to agree with that. I mean, it's a strange one that people were caring so much about it. I personally cared. I thought, oh my god, we have lost to a team that's beneath us. But then I look at the team and I think half of them probably not going to play very much next season. And then I look at, considering Lee Peltier was starting at centre-back, and the fact that he is not going to play next season, he's not even going to be at the club. He's likely to leave. He's likely to go and be a free agent again, because we did sign him on a free, and it was a 1-year contract and all that sort of jazz. So yeah, it doesn't look like people are going to be, he's going to be staying for long term or anything like that. But the game against Forest, it is a call that we need to make some transfers, but it is also a call that it's just a friendly. It's just sort of a message. It's just a friendly. I know obviously players would have been given their all to try and up their fitness, but it's just a friendly. That's the bottom line is, and we needn't worry about that for the moment. But however, moving on to transfers in just a second. So as always at the Albion, plenty of transfer rumours. Not so much actual movement as in players coming into the club. There has been a bit of movement out of the club, so I suppose we should start with that. And I should start with Jonathan Lecco has moved to Birmingham City for a fee of £1 million. Now that was. I feel like it's a good deal for Birmingham. I feel like I feel like that was a small fee for quite a good player, especially in the eyes of Birmingham. I think for us, we were just trying to get rid, because he's not going to play games for us. Let him go wherever it's. I suppose we very much of him because he is a homegrown player. He's an academy prospect, and did come out of the academy. So we just sort of thought we need to get rid. But for Birmingham, £1 million for a player to grow and be a decent player. He's not the finished article. If perhaps Karanka can improve, Ita Karanka, who's now manager of Birmingham City, can improve some of his decision making, that would really help his growth and development. And I feel like if they do that, then he's going to do a good job at Birmingham City. Often when we watch Jonathan Lecco, he's looked like he's got all the pace and he's got the flair and he's got the tricks and he's got that bit of something to beat a player. But when he gets into that final third, he often doesn't pull out the right cross, often doesn't shoot at the right time, perhaps doesn't play the right pass, and that's something that can be improved. And I think if they get a tune out of him, then he'll be a good player. And obviously that'll be the way that it goes for Birmingham, and that'll turn out to be a great signing. I know it will. Obviously, we all wish him the best at West Bromwich Albion. No hard feelings whatsoever between the club or the fans and Jonathan Lecco. We have all supported him. It's just the fact that he's not going to break into the first team squad. Definitely not in the Premier League. So obviously he's had to leave, and fair play. He's going to go and get some first team action at a local club, and hopefully he's going to do a fantastic job for Birmingham. I do hope he does. But I hope we don't kick ourselves in the same way. I just hope he does a good job. So hopefully, Jonathan Lecco. Well, glad Jonathan Lecco has gone and left the club for £1 million. So that is the only outgoing this week, I think. So actually, that's not the only outgoing. The other outgoing is Gareth Barry has decided to retire from professional football. So he's left the club. West decided to retire. Obviously, Premier League's leading leading appearance maker, and a fantastic tribute. And a fantastic player for the club, I suppose. He's come in and done a job at an age where he probably wouldn't be expected to do such a good job at West Bromwich Albion. Yes, he was involved in taxi incidents, but I am talking purely about football-related matters here. But he did a fantastic job considering his age. Really, if you consider, I think he was like 36 when he joined, maybe 35 or 36. Came and did a solid job in midfield, and deserves a lot of praise for his time here at West Bromwich Albion as well as at other clubs. To name a few, I'd say Aston Villa and Man City as well. Also had Gareth for a bit of time, and he deserves a lot of praise here at West Bromwich Albion for the service he's done, and it's fantastic to see him retire on such a high note. But for the couple of outgoings at the club, we haven't had any incomings. Obviously, Mateus Pereira joined us on a permanent deal a couple of weeks ago now, I think. It's gone a bit quiet on the transfer front. There's been a couple of developments with a couple of players recently, but still, overall, has been a little bit quiet, and that's a bit worrying, if I'm being honest. I'm a bit worried. A lot of people I've seen are a bit worried. And you guys have been sending in your plenty of transfers that you guys want to see. Obviously, Eberechi Eze, we put in a bid for him last week, a bid of £17 million. Crystal Palace beat us to Eze. He preferred to stay in South London, so that is where he has gone now. So we thought that would be a fantastic sign. I'm surprised we'd put that much towards him, really. I mean, I think that's quite a lot of money to put towards him. I know he's a fantastic player, but he's obviously worrying. But it's obviously worrying how no players have been signed. Obviously, we were obliged to buy Pereira. There's no choice in the matter about that. He had to come, and obviously we're happy that he had to come. We're happy that nobody else could nip in, because let's be honest, they probably would. But not much movement. There has been a little bit of a development regarding Cedric Kipre from Wigan, who's a bit of a snip at the price that has been talked about, and the price that's been talked about is just about £1 million for him. So apparently we're close to signing him for £1 million. Apparently it looks like we're gonna nip in and get him away from Wigan Athletic, of course. So it's interesting how that, I think it's like Semi Ajayi. You think you spent 1.5 million on Semi Ajayi and you're going to spend $1 million on Kipre. That's quite a good bit of business, in my opinion. That's quite a nice, sort of way of doing your business. That's what I like about the signings we made last year. So Furlong, 2 million, Ajayi 1.5 million, getting some nice loans in, getting a couple. Austin was 3 million. If you think the player we thought we were getting for 3 million was quite a good deal. So you consider the bargains that we have got over the past couple of years. That will also do us finally with Cedric Kipre, and a lot of people pleased to see that deal starting to get a bit more official. And obviously there's another one which Joseph Massey from the start has also confirmed, so we know that's correct. Obviously a reliable source, Joseph Massey. But here we are. Joseph Massey says talks with Benfica remain ongoing, but I understand progress is being made as Albion work to strike a deal for Filip Krovinovic. So I'm not sure whether that's going to be a permanent deal, a loan to buy deal, just a loan. We never know. We won't know until probably it's announced whether it's going to be happening. It's believed that they're discussing two potential deals. One which would mean that they become. So they want him to be permanent at the end of this loan move. Another option is for it to be paid in instalments. So if we just pay, £1 million every month or something like that, £500,000 every month, and then eventually we cover the transfer fee for him. So that's one of the options that's been talked about, and one that's been highly speculated. But yeah, it's interesting to see which one's going to happen. Karlan Grant, there's been confirmed interest in him. I like him. I like Karlan Grant. I think he's a good player. I think he'd score goals for us. I think he's just the sort of player we need. Fast, powerful, does both jobs. Very athletic player, very good build, very strong as well. So and a good finisher in front of goal. Takes his chances well. I saw a compilation from Huddersfield fans about his time both in the Premier League and the Championship, and nobody has complained about many things. The only thing they have complained is that he thinks he's a big fish in a small pond at Huddersfield Town, and I myself do not. I think, well, I myself do not like that kind of player, really, but I do think that he'll perhaps be at the level that he should be at if he joins West Bromwich Albion. £10 million is the price that's been rumoured. I'd take £10 million for Carlin Grant all day long. He's a good striker. Perhaps might need a little loan in there as well. Perhaps a loan backup striker. My first option would be Brewster from Liverpool. But there are a couple of others that maybe should be given a chance, given a little go. I'd have always said somebody like Nketiah, if Arsenal would like to let him go, maybe as a backup. A bit of pace, nurturing him. Troy Deeney has also been speculated on loan. I like that idea. Troy Deeney, tough nut, a very tough nut, hardcore player, and local as well. I think he started his career at Walsall, if I'm not mistaken. So perhaps Troy Deeney might want to come back to these parts and play for West Bromwich Albion. We shall have to see if that anything does happen, but he's an option at the moment, apparently. So there's plenty of rumours, but not any coming in at the moment. Obviously, stay updated with our Twitter account, because we're always having a look at the latest rumours on there. The Twitter account is at the Baggies Pod, so if you guys want to go and have a look, then go and check that out, because we're always in with the transfer gossip. We're always discussing that over on the Twitter page, so make sure you go and have a listen, have a look at that. And we did ask you guys whether, what sort of transfers you guys would like to see and what is possible in the time remaining. I think it closes in October, the transfer window. Obviously a bit more time than you to equivalate for the time that's been lost over the coronavirus period. So obviously it would have normally started on the 1st of July, but that didn't happen because of the coronavirus and the fact that the season was delayed. So here's Paul Garbutt's response to what would be possible. He says we need 6 or 7 signings. Krov and Kiprut would be a good start. A Robinson-Burke swap is no-brainer. If Deeney is available on loan, that would be decent. And Henry from Brentford was also, if also possible. I like Rico Henry. It's whether the full-back position is a priority over a striker, or whether it's over a goalkeeper. It doesn't look like we're going to buy a goalkeeper. I think it's just criminal how they're going to let Sam Johnston essentially be the Premier League goalkeeper with no real competition behind him. Jonathan Bond's not going to be number one. Let's face that. If he was, he'd have challenged last season. Alex Palmer potentially. Alex Palmer potentially could be challenging. I don't know whether he's good enough. That's the thing. But yeah. So next one. James saying, like as earlier said, for a new defensive midfielder, a holding midfielder, and a forward. Yeah, I guess it's a confusing time for everybody, if I'm being completely honest. Who's going to join the club and who's not going to join the club? SFC says, who knows what's realistic without 2 strikers and a centre back minimum in the squad. It looks as if it's set to do a derby. Yeah, that's a fair comment. At the moment, it doesn't look good. At the moment, you're relying on not the quality of the players, you're relying on the fight and the spirit of the players. And they've only got so much of that. They've only got so much of that they can, that equivalates their ability. You need to get quality players in order to stay in the Premier League. And at the moment, I don't think we've got enough of those. There are some. Pereira could be one of the best players in the league this season. You never know how he's going to turn out in this division. But as for the players behind him and perhaps one player in front of him, who knows what we could end up with on that first game. And I do hope it's not Robson Carney or Charlie Austin starting. And if it is them starting, I'd hope that somebody comes off the bench that's new. I just can't imagine us starting without that striker. SFC also says, in addition, games are won and lost in midfield. I'd be shocked if Sawyers and Livermore have what it takes to win the battles. Yeah, I agree. I feel like another midfielder is needed. Whether they're going to play alongside or instead of one of them and alternate between different games. They looked tired for parts of last season. Towards the end, I suppose that's natural. It's the longest season ever. You're likely to look tired. You're likely to look fatigued. But the fact that Livermore and Sawyers did look a bit tired worries me a bit, because they're going to have to. It's I suppose Championship is intense, but it's not as quality. So they're going to have to be. They're going to have to be as quality as they can, really. So yeah, it's an interesting one, and going to see how it gets on towards the end of the transfer window. But as always, thank you very much for listening to the Baggies Podcast. We're always here, I suppose. It's been a strange period recently because we haven't been able to get the podcast out to you guys, but now we have, so we're glad about that. And thank you very much for joining. for joining the podcast this week. Make sure you go and check out my Twitter page, because we've just reached 200 followers, and we're looking to get in touch with as many Baggies fans as we can. If you guys would like to get involved in the podcast, get involved and come on the podcast for a chat, perhaps towards the season start, make sure you get in touch and get a message with me on Twitter. That is at the Baggies Pod. But thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time, Baggies fans. Come on, you Baggies, and hopefully we'll make some signings by the next podcast. See you next time. Goodbye.